This is the age of the multidimensional self.
Hello there, it's Kelly here from Divine Alchemy Healing, and today I'm very excited and delighted to introduce you to Rodney from Radionic Healing. He runs a really big Facebook group which has got 37 and a half members or something like that. And he's going to tell us all about how he got into using a pendulum, radionics, and also show us some of his wonderful pendulums that he makes by hand. So I'm going to hand over to you, Rodney, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi. Hi to everybody. Yeah, I'll give them a little bit of an introduction because there's a journey that I progressed through, and I've always been involved in some way in healing. I mean, my background is in nursing. I was an ITU nurse, and I've always been interested in the idea that the body has an energy, an information field that sustains it. We're more than just the physical bits. And I think when you're a clinician in the conventional sense, you tend to think of the body in terms of systems and, blood cells, and they go round, and the nerves work like this and the organs work like that. But it was always clear to me that there was something more. That the healing process is vast, it's complicated, and it's hugely interesting. And even if you can break it down into little subsections as well, as a nurse, I used to observe things that just amazed me. The way that people healed, for example, or didn't. And how it was directed by different forces. That was the sense that I got anyway when I was looking at the cases. I can always remember a particular case of a chap that came in, and he was very, very badly injured. A bus had hit him, and he wasn't thought to live. Now, so what we did, we would put him on a ventilator and use just general care, and we were basically waiting for this man to die. He didn't. He got better. and then the clinicians were all, scratching their heads thinking, how is this possible? How did this man just get better? And there was no after effects at all. And he was, and when I say badly injured, he really was. When a bus hits you, you can imagine you're pretty badly broken. But yes, he healed. It was quite incredible. So there's all sorts of these lessons that if you observe the process, you can see that healing is a magical thing. It is really quite incredible. Another thing that struck me was the way that the drugs that we were giving, and one of the first things you do when a patient comes into hospital, take them off all the suitcase full of drugs that they've been given by the GP, and then just observe them.
Right.
And then the processes that they go on the drugs that they actually need, which are maybe 2 or 3, and the other thing that I was quite fascinated about, the way that people responded to drugs in an individual way. And it was totally unpredictable. The only way you knew is when that person took it. So it just goes to show the uniqueness of the human body, really. It really is, and it's fascinating, and it's a mystery. Anyway, this prompted me to go into acupuncture, and I trained as an acupuncturist. In a modern form of acupuncture with a group called the Society of Biophysical Medicine. And what our aim was to kind of bring it into the modern world, really. We didn't use any form of, Chinese language, yin, yang, all that. We're not sort of disrespecting it, but we're putting a new angle on it. So we wanted to use electrical skin measurement, voltage measurement, Kirlian photography, some of the modern techniques that you can use to identify essentially the energy changes that are associated with ill health. We worked with addictions as well. It was also, this was a time when the AIDS thing was going on. You can remember on television in those days there was huge warnings about HIV. So we did some work in that area as well. We actually got a spot on Channel 4 News for the work that we were doing. It was quite interesting because we were also using frequency, and these were frequency generators. And I think that our organisation was probably the first one to develop frequency equipment that was literally concentrated on the parameters of the equipment to deliver a healing signal. So we were very interested in getting something that produced a very accurate frequency with a very predictable waveform, and that these are parameters that you could change quite accurately. And so we were looking at some of these. We're looking at alpha frequencies, delta frequencies. We got into the addiction field as well, looked at ways in which you could use that brainwave entrainment to help people come out of that addictive mental state, which also helped to dampen down the withdrawal effects from hard drugs, and it shortened it too, so you could actually bring them down to within a few days to a week. The symptoms of the withdrawal were similar to what I would say a dose of flu, which was flu's pretty miserable. It's not easy, but it's much easier than going what we call the cold turkey without. So that can last a long time. And essentially we found, and this is a message to anybody working in the addiction field, the quicker that you can bring back a natural sleep pattern, that's the key to it. And that's where the delta and the alpha frequencies came in. So we worked with a lot of addiction organizations at the time, actually, we set up a training course. I did a 2-day training course for alcohol and drug workers to help to empower them to use this as a tool to help their clients come off. Unfortunately, the powers that be weren't very interested in developing treatments for addiction. That's gone off the menu. It's something that's a little bit of a niggle for me, that these organizations, these charities, whatever they are, they should focus on actually treating the individual, treating the problems that they're faced with. So look at the symptoms, look at what they're feeling, what they're going through, and that includes mental health as well as the physical side of it. So there's the physical symptoms and the mental symptoms, the emotional and the higher symptoms as well. Now, this is where I was quite interested in pursuing this line of inquiry. So I started to get involved with radionics. I had a private practice as well, and I basically just I traded homeopathy as well. That's something else that I was interested in doing. That was because I used a homeopathic remedy for my hay fever, and it completely cured it in 2 weeks. It was gone. Never suffered like that since. It was incredible. So I did a course in homeopathy, and I saw an advertisement for radionic imprinter of homeopathic frequencies by Bruce Copeland. And I bought this and was able to manufacture homeopathic remedies just by using the frequency. So you could use distilled water, or you could use saccharin lactose pills, the little ones that dissolve under your tongue. You could put them in the equipment, and it created a field effect. Basically, you set the dials, just like a radionic equipment. You set the frequency, set the amount of time, and then the remedy was there. You could take it. So I realized, looking at the information that came with it, that there's a lot more that you could do with this. You could actually use those frequencies for distant healing, the traditional form of radionics. And this is a very fascinating subject, because it was when I didn't know anything about it until this point, going back in my career, and I looked into it, and I found that it was discovered by a very brilliant, highly qualified doctor called Albert Abrahams. I think it was in the 1920s or 30s, somewhere around there. And he noticed that when a culture of an organism, a bacteria, was brought close to a patient when he was doing an examination, it changed the percussion sounds on the abdomen. So he tried different things, and he found that he got a different percussive pattern depending on what substance was brought into the biofield. Very, very interesting. So this guy was a brilliant mind. He decided that this was due to frequencies, something like a radio frequency. So he just produced a box with a row of tunable dials on it, and I think they were just what we would call rheostats, like volume control dials.
Yeah.
And he put them in a series, and he connected them to the patient, and he found that he could set these rheostats to replicate the pattern of the abdomen, the abdominal percussive pattern. And so he didn't need the actual culture. He could use these dials to tune in to the frequency. And this was the start of radionics. Now, he wanted to develop this. He developed various things, experimental devices, but he then drew down the ridicule of the profession, and it basically ruined him. He reached the top of his profession. Actually, he was world renowned, and it ruined his career. Totally ruined it. So after his death, one of his associates called Ruth Drown picked this technique up, and she developed radionic, as we would know it, radionic equipment, which is basically a set of these dials that he had started, but she brought into the equation the element of distant healing. He hadn't done that. Right. And this is where you could use these frequencies, bring them into alignment with what's known as a radionic witness. I'll explain what that is. A radionic witness is any link, any energetic link with a person, or it can be an animal, a plant, a location. So that witness it started off being a little spot of blood or a little sample of blood. Then other witnesses were used, like a snippet of hair. Now we know that energetically, lots of things can be used. A photograph. You can write the name of somebody on a card while you're thinking of them, and the energy will be imprinted on the card of that person. That can be used as a witness. So this is a link, and then you can set the dials, and basically that's radionic healing for you. How do you decide what dials need to be set? The dials basically are a string of well, I can show you. I've got a little radionic device here, and it's got 3 dials on, and each one has a scale, and you can just set it. Now, if I set each one of these like that to different numbers, so that's what we call a radionic rate. So this one is 3, 3, 3. Now that could be a rate for something. I don't know. I've just set it randomly. But rates are obtained by tuning, and this is where the pendulums come in. Because you utilize a pendulum. I'll just get one of my first pendulums actually that I got when I started radionics is this little plastic one here. And this, I still use this just for dowsing. Right. Just a little bit of plastic. Yeah. And you want something small and light when you're doing radionics, because what you do is you place the witness on one of these plates. You hold the input. That goes onto the input plate, and the other plate in this is pretty typical of most radionics. You use the other plate to dowse over like this. Okay. And while you're dowsing, you can do 2 things. You can dowse in the conventional sense with a chart, or it's usually with a chart actually, you're going down a list, or you can actually change the dial as you're holding the pendulum over the plate, and the pendulum will change into a tuning position when that occurs. So you'll get a tuned state at some point with the dial, and that will be a tuned state obviously with the sample that you have on the instrument. So you end up with a rate that will be healing for that individual. And most radionic devices, they're actually called instruments. One of the things that irritates me when on the Facebook forums, I have another Facebook group, by the way, called Radionic Users Group. Oh, okay. And people refer to radionics as machines. They're not radionic machines. They are instruments, because a machine does something regardless of the operator. A radionics device requires the dowsing ability of the operator. So there's kind of like a connection there. one of the little problems that I have about with radionics is that there is a little bit of a danger for the operator, because the operator connects and tunes with the energy of the person that they're treating. So you have to be cautious of that and do quite a bit of protection to stop it. But I noticed this myself when I was treating patients with radionics. What would happen, and I found it quite amusing, I didn't see the danger of it at first, I would get mild symptoms of the thing I was treating, very mild. So if somebody was, I treated somebody with migraines, I would find I'd just get the odd little headache for a day, hardly noticeable, to be honest. I don't suffer headaches, but it was hardly noticeable. But this is the kind of thing that happened again and again. I get mild doses of the thing I was treating, because you're connecting with the energy.
Yeah.
Now, let's bring it forward, actually, because we could talk on it all on this for an awfully long time, but to bring the pendulum side of it in, for a long time I just used pendulums for radionics, for dowsing, as part of my practice, for example, to discover the right homeopathic remedy for someone, or you might have a choice of 6 or 12 homeopathic remedies, but you want to fine tune it for the individual. You can do that with pendulums.
Yeah.
You can do that with the radionic device, actually helps with that as well. But I didn't realize I was also aware that you could tune pendulums as well. That's something that I was quite aware of. But I didn't realize that you could send the information out with a pendulum. And this is where pendulum healing comes in. And this is where you need something a little bit more than my little plastic bob that is just for dowsing. Because when you get into the realm of using what we call high vibrational tools, which is what these pendulums are, they're more than pendulums. They're not just used for dowsing yes or no answers, they're used for sending information. So what we do with a is very, very simple. And one of the messages that I would get over to the people in my group who might be watching this video, it is a lot of people they see pendulum dowsing and they straight away want to know answers. And they say, oh, what's my yes response, what's my and some people find difficulty in even getting that response. But once they've got a response, they then start asking questions which are deep life questions, about that are, quite deep questions about your partners, or about, business decisions and things like this. When you just start dowsing, it's like anything else. You start small. Don't, become experienced before you start doing these things, because even for an experienced dowser, nobody can claim to be 100% accurate. It'd be lovely to say we could be 100% accurate with dowsing. Nobody is. But you get a degree of accuracy which is helpful, which is useful, very, very useful. Now then, so there was a group called Dowsing the Other Way Round, or something like that, whereby when you use a dowsing healing, you're using your voice, you're using the movement of the pendulum. And I would say to those people who are looking at this, if you're just starting dowsing, why not start with pendulum manifestation, pendulum healing? It comes with different words. I think Eric Hunter coined the term alchemy. Prior to that, it might be manifestation or pendulum healing. But what it means is that we spin the pendulum, we consciously spin it like this, and then which is healing in itself if you have a high vibrational pendulum. If it's in your biofield and you spin it, then because it's in your biofield, very often you can put your hand under it like this, because there is a palm chakra that you're connecting with there as well. So very often when you're doing self-healing, you do it like this. You don't have to, you can just spin it. It doesn't matter. But it's a good start for anybody wanting, because you automatically start dowsing anyway, because very often you'll want to know, well, what energy do I need to send, right? And the way you find that energy is you dowse for it. So the two are very, very interlinked, both pendulum manifestation and dowsing for answers. So yes, so we use so once we've spun the pendulum, it creates a form of power. This has been termed a cone of power because you have a kind of a rotation that forms a cone. I mean, does anyone really understand this? This is where we make some kind of link.
Yeah.
This is how I see it, because we know very little. Let's face it, we know very little, but we have to concentrate on what we observe, the effects. It's like electricity. Nobody understands electricity. We understand it by the effects that it gives us when we put the light on, put the heater on, that kind of thing. Same with pendulums. So we spin it and it creates a form of energy. And it's a universal energy that we can tap into. And I believe this is exactly what the makers of stone circles did when they created stone circles, Stonehenge and all the rest of it, maybe the pyramids as well, who knows. But they're using these geometric shapes to attune to universal energy. That brings us into the subject of power spots as well, Earth's power spots, because if you go to these places, they're also places of healing. They're places where you can really use your pendulum to even greater extent. So you spin it. Now, what energy do you put into it? Well, you do that with a decree. It's with your intention. And people say, well, can I just think it? You probably can. I mean, a lot of people do this by just thinking what they want when they spin the pendulum. I like to verbalize. I like to form what I call a pendulum decree. So what is a pendulum decree? It's simply an affirmation, just an affirmation. How many people who are looking at this video have used affirmations and driven themselves silly repeating them until they've got a sore throat, because you have to repeat and repeat and repeat. Very often the books will tell you you've got to adopt a mindset to feel the emotion of the affirmation too. The beautiful thing about using pendulums is you don't need to. You don't need to do all that repetition. In fact, the repetition can be a negative. You make a statement, you spin your pendulum, and then you let it. Once you've said your statement, you just let it come to a natural stop. Some people like to use a technique whereby if they're adding healing energy, they use a clockwise swing, which in dowsing is usually the positive, isn't it? So or if you're removing something, use an anti-clockwise swing. I virtually always just use a positive swing like that. Yeah. So the message is it really doesn't matter. Don't get hung up on it. So the other thing about it is if you start doing this, rather than concentrating on getting your yes, no answers and all the rest of it, if you start doing this, you're getting the feel of the pendulum movement automatically, just by letting it spin in your hand. The pendulum should be held by just gathering up the cord into the palm of your hand. And I think the only thing that I need to say is it's usually just keep your fingers over the palm chakra to keep that energy from being a source of interference really for the energy of the pendulum. The same for pendulum cords. You've probably seen my posts in the group about moving from a chain to a cord. All my working pendulums have these waxed cords.
Yeah. Could you tell us a bit about that? Because we don't know. Tell us why a cord is better than a chain, for instance.
Yes. Now, I'm very, very interested that that this was actually brought to my attention by Eric Hunter. And he does very good books and courses on pendulum healing and pendulums too, all very, very good, top-rate stuff. And he talked about this. It made perfect sense to me. And it also went with my own observations, because I'd been doing some seminars on dowsing, and I noticed that those that were using crystal pendulums and or pendulums with chains were finding it very, very difficult to get a response. Or, and this is through the group as well, virtually all the people coming through saying, oh, my pendulum's giving me chaotic
Yeah.
responses. One day it'll do this, or it'll spin like crazy, or and I would say to them, what pendulum are you using? And they would say, oh, a quartz crystal, and I'd have a look at it. It had got a chain on it. Now, chains are conductive, and we've just been talking about, well, we haven't been talking about it, actually. That's a whole other ball game. How metals interact with subtle energy, and they do.
Right.
Without a doubt, they do. They act rather like an antenna. I think this is a good analogy, the antenna on a radio set. It's there to draw in the energy of the signal to then transform it into the sound that you hear. With this radionic device that I've just shown you, where have we got it here? Let's have a look at it again. You can't see it, but behind that panel are wires, and wires connect to coils, and the coils are under these circles here, where you place your dowsing or you place your witness sample. And why is it done that? Because the wires conduct subtle energy. We're not interested in the electrical. People think these are electrical circuits. They're not. They're energy circuits. So metal conducts current. Now, we've also found that metal stores as well. And Bruce Copeland, when he developed a way of storing, he developed these, what they are foil cards, just a plastic card with a bit of foil on it, metallic foil. And this metallic foil can store the same energies that we're talking about with dowsing, healing, radionics. So here I've got stored, for example, with my radionics, I've imprinted it with flower essences, you see. So that's a flower essence.
Right.
And these energies can then be used to transmit.
Okay.
So this was an interesting development in radionics, because it meant for the first time we were using metallic substance to store these frequencies. We call them frequencies. I always have difficulty with that, because people immediately think about Hertzian frequencies that we can measure. Of course, we're talking about subtle frequencies. Now, the two are very probably connected, but we don't know that. We can't discern them other than by dowsing, and that's why we call them subtle frequencies. So these could be stored on a piece of card, and these cards were carried around by people. For example, if I carry this card on me, then I've got the frequencies of those flower essences in my biofield. So I'm gaining the benefit of those remedies without actually having to take the remedy. So it's a very, very useful thing to do. So you can see that if you have a cord which is metal, then that cord is also an antenna. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it be? And we also utilize the cord itself, even without being metal. When we tune in, we use a certain length of cord to tune our pendulum to a specific substance or a particular thing or whatever it is we want to do. And that's done by simply holding the pendulum over, let's say, a remedy. Let's get a remedy or something. Let's say this remedy. This is a little remedy. I want to tune it. So I hold it over, and then I just simply hold it at the very tip of the pendulum and slowly let the pendulum out like this.
Okay.
And gradually, as you're kind of doing you're kind of making radionics here, really, because you're tuning something. You're tuning the cord. And then at some point, the pendulum will start to rotate. So there I know that if I make a mark at that point on the pendulum,
Yeah.
then that will automatically now send, when I spin it, the energy of that remedy. So spinning that now, as I'm talking to you, I am receiving the benefit of that remedy in its subtle form. The energetic form is in my biofield. So you can see how useful the ability to tune is. Now, when we're dowsing or when we're, sort of using our pendulums, we want to be in control of that, don't we? We don't want any energy that happens to be around to focus itself, like that antenna's picking that energy up. We don't want it to focus itself on us because we're holding the thing. We don't want it to go where we're sending our intention. Now, this can be done. I mean, this is a big subject, and obviously it would take the whole thing up if we were to talk about it. But what are these energies? They're largely geopathic stress, or they can be negative energies in the environment, which are left due to past events. They can be discarnate spirits. That's a whole thing, and people can accept that or not. I believe I know who they are. They are real, yeah. And that these energies can, if we allow them, they can affect us, or if we operate in a cavalier way, they can affect us. So we want to do everything we can to prevent the unwanted, so that we are working with what we want to work with.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like I'm learning so much from you. So thank you.
No problem.
Because my pendulums are on chains at the moment, but I didn't know why people kept saying, "I'll put them on cords," so now I do. Thank you.
Yes.
So
I have a few that are very very nice looking pendulums. And they've been made for specific purposes by other folk, and they put a very nice chain on them, and they look so nice. I leave them, so I don't. All my working pendulum have the cord, but I still like those. I still use them occasionally.
Right.
But if you are intent on using things like quartz and chains, then you have to clear them. Yeah. You have to clear them of those energies really before you use them every time, and at the end keep them clear, because not all energies are positive. Energies are the full gamut, they're just like a big smorgasbord of stuff out there, and we're wanting to use the energies that we want to use. And even if you take something like universal energy, we think of it as just one homogeneous big lump of energy, but that it's not, obviously it's not that. No. It's got its own frequencies that can be tapped into, and that different people have worked with different aspects of this. I'd refer you to a very good book by Ibrahim Karim called let me get this right, Back to a Future for Mankind. And Ibrahim Karim is an Egyptian architect who's working with energies in his work, and he developed what he's called biogeometry. And biogeometry is what he terms the science of form. Now, the science of form has been around, of course, as we were saying before, since the dawn of man. And it was used by ancients in the stone circle, all these, in the rituals, the tribal Native Americans used form in their rituals, the drumming. They use a theta frequency in their drumming. They do now, I believe. Some of these skills have not been completely lost. And also they used, we know from the carvings on the rocks, they used forms like spirals. And spirals are vortexes of energy, and even a spiral form is creates with it a vortex of energy. What was it? One of the physicists that says everything is energy, Nikola Tesla or something. Yeah. Maybe Nikola Tesla said that. If he didn't, he ought to have done.
Yeah.
it's right, isn't it? We could also say everything is information. Because when we're using radionics, or when we're using energy type healing, we're sending information, and we're receiving information. You see, so everything is information.
That is amazing, and thank you so much for giving us all that information, because I know it's going to help so many people.
I hope so.
Yeah, I really think so. So do you want to take us through a protocol, with a decree rather?
Yes.
Get our pendulums, or you can
yes.
tune into the energy.
That's right. Yes, let's do that.
What was it we were going to do? It was
Well, did you have a particular preference? I've got in. I always, because I like to keep my mind clear on what I'm doing. I write them down. I may have a notebook and then I put them on my computer and I print them out and keep them in a file. Now I've got here. What have I got here? Let's have a look. That's not truth. I think this one is. Oh yes, I'm dropping bits all on the floor. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Let's have a look here. There's a well-being. We all like well-being, don't we? Why don't we do well-being?
Especially if you haven't had well-being in your life for a while.
That's right. And that's another little tip as well for people who are going into the pendulum healing. You don't need a very, engineered decree to the nth degree where you're looking for the underlying causes and all the rest of it. Why not start with just general healing?
Yeah.
You don't need to know the science behind it. That's what we're going to do here with the well-being, and I think that makes a point that if you can keep it general, then that's something that applies to everybody, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I like to, before I start any little, I do sometimes pick up my pendulum and do decrease just all the day.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a session. I like to do a little bit of protection. It can be anything. I mean, people have their own little protection decrees, but one of the ones that I use, so if you've got your pendulum, you want to swing along to this, just like set your pendulum swinging in a clockwise manner.
Sorry, it's on a chair. It is wood though.
No problem.
Okay.
And the other thing that I would say is that it's not necessary particularly to get too deeply into a dowsing state, but I do like to just take a few moments to center myself before I do any decrees. Just like do some conscious breathing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a little meditation when you do this. It's just takes a few minutes, that's all. Just to center yourself, quieten your mind, regulate your breathing, just let go the thoughts that were going on before, let them go. And we can now define the little healing session. So now we can spin our pendulum. To the Supreme Being, thank you for creating a powerful shield of protection around me, my chakras, and my aura. I ask that I shall repel any non-beneficial or harmful energies or entities of any kind. I ask that everything that I shall say or do shall be for my highest good, the highest good of all concerned, and the highest good of all. And just allow your pendulum now just to come to a stop. My pendulum, when it's done its work, always goes to a backwards and forwards motion like this. I don't differentiate between whether it goes backwards and forwards that way or backwards and forwards that way. It's just the fact that it stopped spinning that tells you that the work has been done. And with experience, you will know that that energy has gone forward. You don't have to keep repeating it. You just know it's out there, it's done, it's doing its work, and just know it. Now, another little tip I'd like to give people is that when you do a pendulum decree, probably one of the hardest things to do is to let it go and not to think about it. It's called we call it lust for result. If you're desperate for something to happen, then your mind will go to it and think, is it happening? And this creates doubt and all the rest of it. Now, it can be hard, but with practice, with experience of using the pendulum, getting the little results, get the small results, and that will give you the confidence to go bigger as you go along. But one of the ways that I do it is to adopt a certain attitude. So if I've done a decree, say, for something to happen, I say the decree, and I find my mind coming onto that subject. What I do is I think about it almost like, you know, those occasions where you've got your administration stacking up, your letters that you've got to report, your forms that you've got to fill in and send back to the taxman, and they're stacking up a little bit, and they're on your mind, the back of your mind, thinking, oh, I've got to do that, I've got to do that. Now imagine that time when you've done them, and then for a day or two after, you still think you haven't done them. Oh, I've got that. Oh no, I've done it. It's okay. Now, if you can get into that mindset of, oh no, that's taken care of, I've done it, let it go. That's the kind of mindset that you need to let go of this lust for result.
Yeah.
Just a little tip I'd like to pass. So let's do some well-being decrees, as I call them. So some people call them commands. The reason I call them decrees is that when I was doing a workshop, somebody didn't like the word command. They thought it was too commanding. And so, well, you don't have to use that word. So I like the word decree. It suits me, and that's what I stick to.
I feel like it's a bit more than a command as well.
It does feel that, doesn't it? I feel the same. Yeah. Right. Let's. This is a great one. Spin your pendulum, and let's go with this one. I move forward now into a time of harmony, light, and love. Right now, if I may ask you, take a deep breath in, hold it, and just let it out. Don't do anything with your, let it do what it needs to do. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Your pendulum was going round and round, and it was taking an awfully long time. One of the ways that you can just get that energy shifted is just doing that, taking a deep breath in, holding it for a moment, then just sighing it out. And you'll find that your pendulum will then go into the neutral.
Right.
A little tip there. Also, you may find that your pendulum doesn't do that when you get a really high vibe one without a chain.
Right.
So, you know, that's a nice enough pendulum. But when you get a high vibe one on a chord, it won't have to work as hard. Mine went backwards and forwards very quickly.
Right. Okay.
So yours was working and working and working. Yeah. Let's do another one. Yeah. No, it's fine. It makes the point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let's spin the pendulum. I can manifest joy and healing. Just do the breath now. Take the deep breath in. And just sigh that out, and your pendulum should start to go backwards and forwards or lose the momentum. Yes, there you go. There you go. So let's go. So just go with the words each time we do this. Spin your pendulum and you will get the benefit. So let's go for another one. Here's another good one. Here we go. I release all emotional blocks that stop me from enjoying peace of mind, body, and spirit. Yes, your pendulum's changed now. So you didn't actually need to do the deep breath that we did, but it did it. Yeah. Here we go.
Breath, I have to say.
Are you feeling the energy change?
Yeah.
Yes, you can do that, and that's always a good sign. You know, when you do a decree, and you develop your sensitivity to feel a shift in the energy as you do it, and that gives you more confidence as well. Shall we do another one?
Please.
Right. Here's a lovely one. I bless the past and embrace the present moment with an open heart. Do a nice deep breath in now. And release. There you go. Pendulum's changed immediately. Right. So let's do one for abundance, because I really do feel a lot of people need abundance, and we've all been programmed not to have abundance, I feel, from childhood.
Yeah.
And it's something to work on. Here we go. Spin the pendulum. Just center yourself. I follow my joy to abundance, prosperity, and fulfillment. It's funny how you can feel the pendulum.
Yeah.
Again, when you've got used to doing this, people will do it. They'll feel the energy change in the pendulum, and it almost as if it's got a life of its own. It'll pull to the side. It'll be going around, and you'll feel it pull to the side. It's fascinating to feel it. Let's do another one. Here's a good one. Did I joyfully? Yeah, I did. I don't know whether I've done that. I'm losing my. I think I'm losing my marbles here. You do go into a bit of a kind of a delta state where you can't think. I'll do it again. Okay. Here's one for abundance again. So spin the pendulum. I joyfully create and enjoy universal abundance on the earth plane. Gone to neutral.
Yeah, got there. That was a different one, so that was nice.
That was a nice one, yes, good. And you get the different feel from the different decrees. One that's just my eyes have just fallen on. Maybe if you want to do any more, but I'll do this one. If you want to do any more, you can ask me. But here's a nice one. Spin your pendulum. I release old thought patterns and free myself to move on to new, beneficial, and joyful experiences. There we go. How did that feel?
Lovely. I'm really enjoying these, and actually taking the breath in and out is really nice as well.
Yes.
Feel the change. It's like it feels like a nice thing to do, like you're either drawing in or you're letting go.
That's right. Right. It's good. And if your pendulum just keeps going round and round and round and you're waiting forever, because normally once you set a decree, a pendulum, especially if it's a good pendulum, a good high quality, high vibe pendulum, it will very quickly, within a few seconds, go from the rotation to the neutral.
Okay.
So if it's going for more than, say, 30 seconds, for
Yeah.
example, but the length of time the pendulum is spinning for is quite interesting, because as long as it doesn't go into that sort of extended time that we're talking about. But it's quite interesting because if it does tend to go on that little bit longer, say I get a decree and it's going for 30 seconds, then you know the pendulum is working hard to shift, so there's an energy block within that field of energy that you're working on. So it's actually quite instructive. There are other movements of the pendulum as well that can tell you things like this, but I think we've overloaded our viewers. Maybe, I don't know, you tell me.
Like a sort of, we've done some nice work that's going to be beneficial to everyone.
Good.
And yeah, you know, I sort of think with when we're doing our videos, we try and keep them to a certain length, just because we know that if we go on too long, people probably, you know, they've got things to do in the day and
Quite.
so hopefully they'll come back and watch a bit more.
Watch a bit more.
And that's what I do. But thank you, Rodney. That's been so lovely, and so lovely to connect with you as well, and sort of put a face to the name, because
yes, it's been I've enjoyed it. Yes.
In your group, everyone knows you, but we don't really know you. So now I feel like
no
better, which is so lovely. You know,
that's good. That's good.
So we'll wrap it up. We're going to just tell you that Rodney makes pendulums when he's got the wood available to him, and if you want to, or if you're interested in those, you can contact him directly through the group by just sending you a direct message. And sometimes,
yes, if you want these pendulums, I mean, I basically send the designs that I want to a friend of mine who has a lathe, and he's very skilled, and he makes them for me from all local Andalusian olive wood, and he knows his wood, so they're all very high quality. I
just imagine that energy as well of the wood itself coming from Andalusia is just so beautiful.
Absolutely. There's something about olive wood. I always used to think in the UK there was something about an oak tree.
That's what this.
And here in Andalusia, there's something about olive wood in the same way.
Wow.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is when we edit this video, we'll put up the name of your group just for anyone who doesn't know it, because I'll probably put this in a couple of groups.
Right.
I've got a very small baby group.
Yes.
Well, so we'll share it there, and we'll produce it over the weekend, and then
great.
You know, everyone can watch it. So thank you once again. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honour to speak to you.
Well, I just hope it's been helpful to someone.
I think it will be helpful to everybody who watches it, to be honest.
That's good.
Your knowledge is just amazing, and you know, hopefully we'll get to do another video some point as well.
I'd like to because we can focus on a particular subheading of energy healing, and that would be interesting to do, because then you can get more of the specifics in.
Perfect. I will look forward to that.
Great. No, lovely.
And thank you everyone for watching, and please do give us a like and a subscribe, because it really helps the channel to grow. So if you can do that, and as I said, check out Rodney's pendulum group if you're not already on it. We'll put a link with all the names of the groups below the video. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Whispers of the pendulum, a journey to go, guiding souls to realms where dreams convene. Kelly and Frog, the masters of the chess, where dreams convene. Within these pages, oh, pendulum chart in your mystic heart, from realms unseen, wisdom you impart, pathways unfurled as our spirits align. Within these pages come healing and